Welcome, everybody, to another Discover Real Estate moment. On our podcast, we have another surprise visit from my friends, clients, and fellow business owner, Andrea Coughtry. And we're going to pull her on from Nashville in just a moment, just to set the stage for today's show. So, we promised you guys local market insights and national market insights. So we're going to be able to get some windows into investment opportunities over in the great state of Kentucky. But we also have some special live insights from the Bitcoin conference that's happening in Nashville. Andrea's there on site right now. And we recognize that, part of our goal for our clients, for all of you that are tuning in, is to help facilitate not just the discovery of community and adventure through real estate, but also through legacy. So for those of you that are cashing in on real estate investments and looking to 1031 a portion of your proceeds, but also diversify some of your investment proceeds, we want to talk about the Bitcoin opportunity. And Andrea has a unique credibility on this because she's been mining it for some time. I'll let her talk about that. Without further ado, please welcome everybody, Andrea Coughtry.
Hello. I am live from BTC 24, which is in Nashville. And this has just been such a great experience so far. We're just on day 2, so it's really just getting started. Security's kicked in. RFK is here. He's in the building. Nice. Russell Brand's here, and tomorrow Donald Trump is going to be here. So there's been a lot of buzz. Security is definitely tightened down today compared to yesterday.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, I want to focus on some of your takeaways because after we went live last week, I had a bunch of people text me saying, "Tim, we hear you talk all the time. Let's hear more from Andrea." No offense, but we want to hear what she has to say. So I wanted to put you on the spot just because I know this is day 2 that you're at right now.
Yep.
And so catch us up, like background. How did you get into investing in a Bitcoin? Because real estate's your bread and butter. You've been doing real estate investing forever.
Yeah. So basically, my younger brother had this crazy scheme like 4 or 5 years ago. He's like, I'm going to get a GPU. I'm going to mine this money offline. And my husband and I are like sitting around. It's Thanksgiving. We're like having some wine at his parents' house. And we're like, he's crazy. And then I started researching it. And I'm like, this is weird. There's a lot of people talking about this, believing in this. You mine this digital currency, you can spend it. So then, my husband's like, well, let me see a little more about this. And his brother is a chemical engineer, so he's super into tech. And they just got talking about it. Next thing I know, we were like putting together these GPU rigs in the house, trying to mine ETH, mine Bitcoin, which are both different types of cryptocurrency. And that quickly evolved to buying what's called a miner, which is these specific machines made specifically to complete blockchains. Each blockchain has 100 Satoshis in it. But so basically that's how it kicked off. We did DCA, dollar cost average purchase, but I think we quickly realized that as Bitcoin continued to grow, I think the market height's been like 75,000 a coin. Well, it's not very economically feasible to continue DCAing to be able to accumulate. So we just kept investing in the infrastructure, which is mining, in which case you're accumulating no matter the price. If it's $1 million Bitcoin or it's a $10,000 Bitcoin, you're still mining. And I will say really quickly, not to get in the weeds, if Bitcoin reaches, it's like any investment. At a certain threshold, when Bitcoin's at, 40, 50,000 a coin, well, it might not be conducive to people earning the energy to supply to complete hash rates to earn coin. So there is economies of scale, and the higher Bitcoin is, the more wide open you can run your miners. And then if you get to a certain point where Bitcoin's a little lower price, it maybe doesn't make sense. But there's also this side of Bitcoin that Bitcoiners know about, that is important to people like yourself, like me, that are in real estate, that sell land, that sell buildings, that, have those types of connections. And I have 2 examples here that I want to show you. And I know we promised the people we would give them examples of investments. I do have an investment here in Kentucky to show you guys.
Nice.
This is a Bitcoin facility. So with Bitcoin facilities, this is, land buildings where you run your miners. You can run miners several different ways. You can be grid tied, where you're paying your local power company. You can be solar tied. You can do some crazy things using natural gas and fracking. And it gets a little in the weeds. But for example, this one is a 4-to-1 megawatt containers. So you can have about 324 miners, which, Bitmain, all these different companies make, depending on what you mine. But this is a 3.6 acre. So 3.6 acre can get you 12-ish megawatts. This one is a grid tied facility. So estimated, the big thing is your cost, like what cost. And I think this
Yeah,
one's
what's
like
the electrical bill on that for us
this
just
one's
simpletons here?
well, this is about 7.7 per megawatts. And for example, in the one site we have in West Virginia, we're getting like a 5 cent per kilowatt. It's a weird conversion. The
Yeah.
best that we've ever seen was we actually had a mining rig set up in Kazakhstan before the war broke out, in which case some political things changed, and we had to get our miners back. They got seized at the border,
Uh-oh.
but that was 2 cents. So you can see why people are, being bullish on different areas, different communities. But just to show you all, there is opportunity in real estate that is not just virtual, right? So if you are
Yeah.
mining these physical machines, physical assets that are in physical sites, land,
Yeah.
infrastructure. So that's here's another one I was going to show you in Kansas. This is a 1.5 megawatt facility. If you can see that, you can kind of see what those look like. So it's pretty cool because Bitcoin can be an investment strategy, a digital currency, a digital asset, but there's a lot of physical infrastructure where you can have, connections to different types of coal, oil, gas that can give you reduced or free power, solar, wind, or be grid tied. But it all depends on, you've got to have the land, the infrastructure, and ability to tie in to some type of an electrical source. So I thought instead of just talking about, traditional real estate
Yeah.
assets, I kind of mentioned these are really cool opportunities. Someone who might have, a large warehouse building that has access to local cheap power. Well, the Bitcoin community will gladly take that land and infrastructure that could be grid tied off of your hands probably very quickly.
So let's just talk about those deals for a moment because I'm really curious on this. The and first of all, for those that want a copy of the flyer, just go ahead and post in a comment, say, copy or request a flyer, and we'll set up a complimentary consult. I'm sure Andrea would love to talk Bitcoin, and we could talk comparative cap rates all day. But if we had to distill this down to, most of our investors are saying, well, just tell me the bottom line. What's my net operating income? As a relation to the purchase price. And obviously, right now, you'd have to translate like what's the actual Bitcoin production and how that
Yeah.
relates over the cost per coin. But if you could do that conversion real time, what would that look like?
Oh, well, I would have to get a kilowatt calculator to determine how many miners you're going to have, what's your hash rate computing power, and what's your cost per kilowatt. So it gets really hard to analyze it without an actual specific deal in front of you, but it's something that we could easily do if you had a project in mind. But here's the other cool thing, Tim. You don't have to actually know anything about mining to lease a site to a miner.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is that when you do that, you can charge, these huge upfront deposits for someone to keep it for X amount of duration and use that as a deposit or prorate the rent out. And also something really cool to talk about from the revenue side is that it's actually a huge revenue producing income for utility companies. Because, for example, there was a site in West Virginia that a company, they had to put $100,000 deposit down to the electric company in order to get access to the amount of power that they needed. So there's a lot of revenue for communities and investors that's more than just selling the land or selling the building. If you've got a vacant warehouse grid tied that has somewhat affordable, something below an 8 cent per kilowatt rate,
Yeah.
is how I would probably convert. But yeah, it
So
would need
eight
to be a
cents a
specific deal.
kilowatt. 8 cents a kilowatt. That's like
But
that would
this
be like
converts to
on the high end.
megawatts. So
Oh,
the
okay.
math of that, I have to use my little my calculator because it's like it gets really hard to transfer the different outputs.
Got it.
So we would probably need Brendan to get on here to really break that down.
Tell him we want him on next time. So to distill this down to the everyday person, when we
Yeah.
look at the curiosity around Bitcoin, and then obviously our space where we're more proficient in real estate, there's almost two options. If someone's looking at buying a Bitcoin facility, they could buy it as a landlord and just have the straight across lease,
It's called
with
hosting
the
too.
and you can have so what would the cap rate like if someone were just to straight lease one of those buildings and someone else were to come and operate?
The one thing that you'll love and hate about me, if I don't know an answer 100, I will not tell you. I will not.
Yeah.
I'll be like, it would come down to the very specific deal and
Mhm.
what your sense is per production
Yeah.
power. Because I mean, you might not be able to lease it at all if you've got a higher cost for electric, but it would just be very, very dependent on how many machines can fit, what infrastructure is there, and what the cost is for electric. So it's so dependent. And Bitcoiners, miners, they can live in any state and they will ship their miners anywhere. So it's very accessible to get your miners places, get them set up. And you can also have hosting. If you wanted to do the research, put your 100 hours in, you can host miners. So then people pay you a hosting facility fee. People will
Yeah.
pay you. So like, let's say you were getting 5 cents, you might be charging them 6.5 cents. So you're making 1.5 cents on each production output, plus charging them rent, or you could just rent out the whole facility. So there's a lot of opportunity. So it's not easy to just. We've been involved in multiple ones.
Yeah.
One where we've just been hosted by a hosting company. Two where we've taken on leases, and one where we're actually building one in Kansas. So it's different, just depending on a lot of factors.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. Well, one follow-up conversation that'll be fascinating to have is if we were to look at a global map to try to find out where's the cheapest price per kilowatt,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not war torn or risk of all of your equipment getting seized. So
yeah.
you probably have
That's
more to share about your Kazakhstan
yeah,
escapades
yeah.
sometime. But regarding Kentucky, so any other thing that you want to share about investing in Kentucky specifically?
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to try to find the cheapest property that was in the best condition with a great school district, really nice neighborhood, and see if I could find something that a beginner investor, somebody who maybe is even well seasoned, but they're like, hey, I want to test out Kentucky. I want to test out management in Kentucky, tenancy in Kentucky. I want to test the waters. And I do have one here for you that I'm going to show.
I love
So
it.
this particular property is, let me go to my photos. I want to show you guys. So this one is 3 bed, 1 bath. It's been on the market like a day. It's only 190,000. I don't know if you get many properties that are 190,000, but let me share the screen with you guys. So what we have here, so we'll get away from our double screen. It's an adorable property. Can you see that?
Yep.
Beautiful location, great school district. It's in great condition, well maintained. Like I said, 3 bed, 1 bath. I do prefer a 2 bath anytime that it's a rental, but I do think that this one really resonated just based on the rental comps. So something like this, 190,000. If you were to purchase this traditionally, and you put 20 to 25% down, your escrowed payment, so taxes, interest, principal, all of the things at full escrow. So you've
Yep.
got your principal and interest and your taxes and insurance being added in. You're paying a 12th of those monthly, so all of your expenses being covered. Because in Kentucky, if you have an SFR, single family, you are putting all of the utilities and lawn care on the tenant. I don't know if that's common in your state.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so basically,
it depends on, I mean, it's case by case specific,
yeah.
but typically you try to get tenants paying their own utilities and lawn care, ideally.
Yeah. So this it's super common here. If it's a standalone home, they pay all utilities and lawn care is building the lease. So
Mhm.
this one escrow, roughly 20% down. You could put more. The 1,288 estimate, and the rent average is 1594. So you could be making, 220, 216 a month on that property. So for a small 190,000 investment, I think that's pretty good.
So
Um,
you're basically saying 190,000 down. So if we did a cash on cash, if someone were to buy this as an investment property, they're not here and they're looking at this as a 20% down as an investment property for 190,000, they're going to have to put 40 grand down, but they could be looking at a cash flow of 200 plus dollars a month.
216ish, yeah.
Yeah. And if they bought it as a primary residence, now is that in a rural community where someone could show up there and say, "Hey, I want to go and try out Kentucky for 6 months, buy it as a primary residence." Could they do a USDA loan in that neighborhood, or would they have to do at
No,
least over 3%?
that's a really powerful school district. That's what's driving up that rental cost. You
Okay,
wouldn't be able to do a USDA, but you could still do it as a primary or vacation and get, preferred rates that way.
got it.
And of course, if they've never purchased, they could get an FHA.
So even if they did, if you were looking for a cash on cash investment, if you did 3% down on 190,000. Let's say you rolled your closing costs in, so you get it for 200, and that's assuming you don't have Andrea negotiating for you, and she's probably going to get you a better deal. But let's say you roll in closing costs and some improvements, and just for the sake of numbers, you do 200,000, and if you're doing 3% down on a conventional, you'd have to do 6 grand, but you could be looking at 215 bucks a month out the door cash flow after all expenses. They're covering everything else. And so your cash on cash return, 216. So that's going to be about 2 grand, 2 plus 2,400 a year on
And that would
6
shift a
6,000.
little with somebody putting less down. We always run it like 20, 25% because it's typically what investors try. So it'll shift. You
Yeah.
won't be getting as much back at that
Yeah.
point. But with that being said, the equity on that can be pulled out to buy your
Yeah.
next one. You might want
Oh,
to try Kentucky out. If you put that 20, 25% down, you could tap out that equity. Hopefully, it appraises for more than you've even purchased for. If we can negotiate, get you a good deal, we can buy that, see how it goes in 6 months, tap that equity out, use that to put down on the next property.
well, I love this, Andrea, because I think this is super important for some of my counterparts to hear that are working remote or are open to a new chapter in life. And they're saying, man, I'm here in Oregon. Maybe Oregon's home to them. Maybe it isn't. Or they're in the Northwest. We have some people tuning in from Washington right now, or certainly our California clients. And they're just saying there seems to be no hope of me buying a place.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the, if there's one mission that I have, is to obliterate that mindset for first time home buyers that are willing to live anywhere. If you're willing to live anywhere, there's opportunities for you to buy. Andrea just brought a $190,000 great starter home opportunity in Kentucky to us. And so there are great buying opportunities in robust areas across the country. So speaking of opportunities across the country, I just want to touch one more thing on
Yeah.
the Bitcoin conference. So you've got former President Donald Trump speaking tomorrow. Uh,
Yes.
Presidential candidate, independent presidential candidate RFK, which there's no secrets there. I'm a fan of the Independent Party. And talking today, what do you expect to gain from insight over this event? And then we'll finish with talking about Inman next week.
I think for me that anyone who knows me, for me to come on here and talk about Bitcoin, they're like, oh, she's had a love hate with Bitcoin, because I have. My husband was definitely okay. Here's so Bitcoiners have their own language. Okay, they have their own words. They do their own things. So like for example, the passes. So this is a well pass. A whale is like, you might call it a shark in other industries, but a whale is someone who has X amount of coins, which keeps changing, or they're just heavily invested in it. So they've got a fun little, it's kind of like their VIP is their well
Yep.
pass. And so the wells, that's like their whole community. So like this whole event every night when the conference is over has a well event, and which is pretty cool to have access to that. But my husband took the orange pill way before I did. My brother got me interested in it. I looked into it, and then my husband took over from there. So, the movie The Matrix, they talk about the red pill or the blue pill. Well, Bitcoin is your orange pill. So that's what is up with all the orange for the conference.
I love it.
Yeah, so he was the orange pilled before me, so I've had to like kind of reel him in at times, be like, okay, you cannot sell yourself for Bitcoin. Like you have to, be diversified, and we have to still buy real estate, and you still have to go to work as a physician. And so my biggest takeaways, one was seeing, are there people as crazy about Bitcoin as my husband?
Yeah.
He's always like, there's people who like Bitcoin more
So
than
you're
me.
not, so you're not alone. You're not just on this
Yeah.
like total
So
tributary of society.
yeah. So that was really exciting for me to come and see some of the new models of miners out, and the best swag ever is at this BTC conference. But just really networking with other people who are doing the same things, I think, is always important, and I think that translates directly into why I go to Inman Connect. This isn't a Bitcoin podcast; it's a real estate podcast. But the same reasons we come here. So we met some people who are in government in Fargo yesterday, talking about some of the mining opportunities, and it's just really cool to see what different states are offering. And it's kind of why we do what we do for real estate conference, right? So next week, you and I will be live in person in Las Vegas. So I made the joke, and Tim didn't get it. I'm like, I'm doing the literal Nash Vegas. So everybody calls Nashville like, oh, it's Nash Vegas now. Well, I'm going from Nashville to Las Vegas. So it's the literal Nash Vegas.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I'm under a rock, so I miss a lot of pop culture references. But we'll count on you to keep everyone informed.
Yeah.
I put just so everyone knows, I mean, this is obviously a long form conversation, but I put Andrea's website in the comments. So if you guys want to schedule a consultation with her on investing into Bitcoin facilities, or follow-up questions, I'm sure we could direct people to either you or your husband. You guys could nerd out on that.
Yeah.
And regarding Inman, before we sign off today, what is 2 things you're most excited about for Inman Connect in Las Vegas next week?
I think that there's a lot of times in life where you've got your blinders on, your race is in front of you, and you're running it, whatever that is for you, whether you're a real estate broker owner, whether you're on a team, you're an individual agent, a solo agent, whatever your tasks is, you're just kind of running. And sometimes it takes something so energetic and monumental like Inman to help you see outside of yourself. And I think that's what I love so much about it. I have amazing takeaways. I come for the education and stay for the connections and networks. And as much as the education is amazing, I always make a big change in my business after an Inman. Regardless if it's something I've known I need to do, I just haven't had the courage to do. Having that community and culture of people support you, hearing other people take that leap. So for me, the biggest thing I always take away is, what are other people doing? How are they doing it? Are they doing it better than me? And just having that open mind to come in and learn. I think that makes it important.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm excited to be learning alongside of you, Andrea, next week. I'm excited to bring extra value back for our clients on how to navigate this interesting and dynamic time in our market. And excited for our agent community to be able to continue to bring value back on how to build a successful and longstanding real estate business. So, Andrea, thank you so much for tuning in and bringing your insight today, live from Nashville. I love that you've just found this like cubby hole. And where are you right now? What is this?
So I am inside the Deep, which is the well VIP area, and they have these literal pods just like set up here. And you can come in, no one can hear you, you can't hear other people, but yeah, you can see right outside is there's a pitch stage out there. There's all kinds of, I'll turn this off so we don't get the glare, but you can kind of see everybody out there mingling, hanging out. So I am going now to link up with Brendan, watch Russell Brand, and then RFP. Michael Saylor's today. Kathy Woods is here. So today is a pretty action-packed, and Donald Trump tomorrow.
That's awesome. Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us all. Have fun with Russell and RFK, and we'll see you next week.
Oh, I think I lost my audio.
Uh-oh. We're tuning you out. On that note,
I lost my audio for a second, but maybe we're back. Okay.
Can you hear her? Can you hear me? All right. Thanks so much, Andrea. Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in for another Discover Real Estate Live. Like Andrea said, we'll be tuning in from Las Vegas, Nevada next week at Inman Connect, where some of the best in the business get together to collaborate and share on how to do quality real estate, whether it be investing, brokering, and ultimately serving our clients, providing the highest value possible. That's what we're here to do. Again, my name's Tim. I'm your host with Discover Real Estate, here to help you find your people and find your place. Thanks, everybody.